I stood at the center of the gallery, my hand resting on the cold steel of my final thesis sculpture. This was the culmination of 6 years of architecture school. The critics were whispering in the corner, nodding at the jagged angles and the brutalist shadows I had cast upon the walls. It was a triumph, but the only thing I was looking at were the 3 empty chairs in the front row. Pause. They stood there like open wounds. Reserved, the little card said. Reserved for a father who claimed he molded me. Reserved for a mother who said she prayed for me. Reserved for a sister, Bella, who had never worked a day in her life, but somehow owned the air we all breathed. My phone buzzed against the podium, a single, violent vibration in the silence. I didn't need to look to know who it was. But I looked anyway. The screen lit up. A text from Mother. Stop calling. Bella having a crisis. The lighting at the venue is wrong. We need you to transfer $3,000 for the emergency photographer. We'll celebrate your little art thing later. Cause. My little art thing. I didn't cry. Tears are for people who still have hope. I realized, standing there in the hum of the gallery lights, that I had run out of hope years ago. The applause started. The dean was walking toward me, hand extended, smiling. He was talking about vision and structural integrity. I smiled back. It was a sharp, geometric smile. It didn't reach my eyes, because in that moment, the daughter died. And the architect was born. They wanted a show, they wanted drama, fine. I looked at the empty chairs and made a silent vow. If they weren't going to show up for my creation, I would make sure they had front row seats for their own destruction. I accepted the diploma. I shook the hands. But in my head, I was already drafting the blueprints for their ruin. To understand the demolition, you have to study the foundation. And our family foundation was rotten long before the roof caved in. Pause. We lived in what the neighbors called the glass house. Literal floor-to-ceiling windows, polished concrete, sterile white furniture. It was a showroom, not a home. My mother, Alara, treated us like exhibits. But there was a hierarchy to the display. Bella, my younger sister, was the centerpiece. She was a rococo nightmare, loud, gilded, demanding, and utterly devoid of substance. She was the ornament that drew the eye. And me, I was the scaffolding. Pause. I wasn't a daughter. I was infrastructure. I remember when I was 12. I had spent 3 months building a complex architectural model for the state competition. A cityscape made of balsa wood and wire. It was delicate. It was perfect. 2 days before the show, Bella threw a tantrum because she couldn't find her ballet shoes. She rampaged through my room like a hurricane in Tool and crushed the model. Just stepped right through the city center. I didn't scream. I just stared at the splintered wood. When Mother came in, she didn't look at the ruin of my work. She looked at Bella's crying face. "Why did you leave your toys on the floor, Arya?" she snapped at me. "You've upset your sister. Fix it." And find her shoes. Pause. Fix it. That was my entire existence. As we got older, the dynamic calcified. I became the unseen mechanic of their lives. I was the one who balanced Father's checkbook when his business investments went south. I was the one who edited Mother's charity gala speeches so she sounded literate. I was the one who did Bella's homework so she wouldn't fail out of private school. They didn't love me. They loved my utility. I was the smart one, the resilient one. Code words for the one we don't have to worry about so we can ignore her completely. While Bella was showered with trips to Milan and brand new convertibles for simply existing, I was given opportunities to build character. My 16th birthday present was a set of drafting pencils. Bella's was a party that cost more than my tuition. "You don't need things, Arya," Father said, swirling his scotch. "You have your mind. Bella? Well, Bella needs help shining. Cause." They thought I was content in the shadows. They thought my silence was agreement. They didn't realize that in the dark you can see everything. I watched them. I analyzed them. I saw Father's trembling hands when the bank statements came. I saw the empty prescription bottles Mother hid in the bathroom vanity. I saw the desperate, hollow look in Bella's eyes when the camera wasn't on her. They were a structure built on sand, heavy, expensive, and sinking. And for years, I was the only thing propping them up. I poured my scholarship money into their temporary cash flow issues. I fixed their messes. I kept the glass house from shattering. But standing on that stage today, feeling the phantom vibration of that text message demanding money for a photographer while I accepted a doctorate, something clicked. The scaffolding was tired. And when you remove the scaffolding from a building that cannot stand on its own, gravity takes over. I wasn't just going to stop helping. I was going to accelerate the collapse. The ceremony was a blur of crimson robes and hollow Latin phrases. Cum laude, magna cum laude. They were just words. Sound waves dissipating in a room filled with people who mattered to someone, just not to me. Pause. I sat in my designated seat, clutching the leather folio. The texture was grainy under my thumb. I focused on that. Texture is real. The empty seats beside me were negative space. I checked my phone one last time before walking the stage. No. Congratulations. No, we're almost there. Just a notification from my bank app. Alert. Unusual activity detected. Transaction approved. $5,200. Merchant. The Sapphire Lounge. VIP services. Location. Downtown. Location. My heart didn't race. It slowed down. It went cold and rhythmic, like a metronome ticking in an empty room. $5,200. That was the exact amount I had saved for my studio deposit, the seed money for my freedom. I unlocked the phone. I opened the shared family cloud account, the digital nervous system I had set up to monitor Father's business expenses. And there it was, the live feed. A photo uploaded 3 minutes ago. It wasn't a blurry accident. It was a high-definition portrait of excess. Bella was in the center, wearing a dress that looked suspiciously like spun gold. She was holding a magnum of champagne. Mother was laughing, her head thrown back, exposing the neck lift I had paid for last winter. Father was toasting the camera, looking flushed and victorious. The caption read, "Celebrating Bella's big callback. The network loves her energy. Star power, family first." Pause. They weren't stuck in traffic. They weren't in the hospital. They were 10 miles away, drinking my savings, celebrating a callback for a reality TV show that Bella wouldn't get because she lacked the talent to be interesting even when scripted. They skipped my Doctorate Defense, the culmination of a decade of discipline, to buy bottle service for a delusion. I looked up. The dean called my name. Aria Vance, Doctor of Architecture. I stood up. I walked across the stage. The lights were blinding. I accepted the scroll. I shook the hand. I smiled the geometric smile. But as I looked out at the sea of clapping strangers, I didn't see an audience. I saw a demolition site. Pause. I walked off the stage and into the dark wings of the auditorium. I looked at the photo again, the timestamp, the location, the cost. They hadn't just abandoned me. They had financed their abandonment with my labor. They used my blood to paint their portraits. I didn't go to the reception. I didn't mingle. I walked out into the gray afternoon, stripped off the crimson robe, and threw it in a trash can. I stood there in my black dress, the wind biting at my skin. I pulled up the banking app again. Transaction pending. Most daughters would call and scream. Most daughters would cry and beg for an explanation. But I am an architect. I don't scream at a collapsing building. I inspect the damage. I assess the structural integrity. And I realized then that the building wasn't just leaning. It was condemned. I tapped the screen. I didn't cancel the card. Not yet. Canceling the card would be a reaction. I needed a strategy. I took a screenshot of the transaction. I downloaded the photo of them laughing. I saved the text message demanding money for the photographer. I created a new folder on my phone. I named it Project Implosion. Pause. They wanted to celebrate? Fine. I would give them a celebration they would never forget. I would curate an exhibit so visceral, so public, that the glass house wouldn't just break. It would turn into dust. The parasites returned at noon the next day. Pause. They swept into the house carrying the scent of stale champagne and expensive perfume. Bella was wearing sunglasses indoors, clutching a venti latte like it was life support. Mother looked brittle, her makeup slightly caked in the daylight. Father was already on his phone, barking about liquidity to someone who probably stopped listening months ago. I was sitting at the kitchen island, a black coffee in front of me. I looked like a statue. Mother dropped her keys on the counter. She didn't say hello. She didn't ask about the ceremony. God, my head, she moaned. Aria, be a dear and get me an aspirin. And check the credit card limit. The card was declined at the valet this morning. It was humiliating. Pause. She was talking about the card I had paid off. The card she had maxed out in 12 hours. I didn't move. I saw the transaction. I said. My voice was flat. $5,000 for a dinner. Father stopped pacing. He turned to me, his face flushing with that familiar, defensive red. Don't start, he sapped. It was networking. We met a producer who knows a guy at Netflix. This is for the family, Aria. You have a degree. You have a job lined up. Bella needs exposure. Exposure, I repeated. You're being selfish, Bella mumbled from behind her sunglasses. You always make everything about money. It's tacky. Pause, tacky. I looked at them. Really looked at them. They weren't powerful. They were pathetic. They were drowning, and they were standing on my head to keep their mouths above water. I made a choice then. If I fought them now, they would just scream and play the victim. They would spin the narrative. Aria is ungrateful. Aria is jealous. No. To demolish a building safely, you have to weaken the structural supports from the inside, quietly, until the weight of the roof brings the whole thing down. I stood up. I walked to the sink and poured Bella a glass of water. I handed Mother the aspirin. You're right, I said. The lie tasted like copper on my tongue. I'm sorry. I was stressed about the defense. Of course, we need to support Bella. They relaxed instantly. The tension vanished. They didn't question my surrender because they believed they were entitled to it. Good, Father grunted. Now fix the card. And Aria, we need to talk about the Anniversary Gala. Pause. The gala. Their upcoming 30th anniversary. The event of the season. They had been talking about it for years. The guest list included the mayor, the city council, the investors Father was trying to woo, and the socialites Mother was desperate to impress. We need you to handle the logistics, Mother said, swallowing the pill. The planner is asking for a deposit, and we need you to organize the retrospective. The photos, the videos, the story of our success. The story of our success, I echoed. Exactly. She smiled, a shark baring its teeth. Show them how perfect we are. I looked down at my hands. I'll do it, I said softly. And if I'm going to handle the finances and the media, I need full access. All the accounts, the cloud backups, the old hard drives. I need to curate the legacy properly. They didn't hesitate, not for a second. Father unlocked his phone and texted me the master passwords. Just make us look good, he said. Pause. That night, while they slept off their hangovers, I entered the digital archives. I didn't just find debts. I found the rot. I found the tax evasion letters hidden in scanned folders. I found the emails from Father's investors, threatening legal action for fraud. I found the messages Mother sent to her friends, mocking my clothes, my career, my dullness. I found the invoices for Bella's modeling gigs that were actually paid for by Father to make her feel important. It was a treasure trove of corruption. They wanted me to tell the story of their success. Fine, I would tell the story. I would tell the whole story. I spent the night downloading everything, audio clips, bank statements, incriminating emails. I wasn't just organizing a party anymore. I was curating an exhibit. The preparation phase lasted 30 days. In architecture, we call this site prep. You have to clear the ground before you can detonate. Pause. I booked the Obscura Gallery for the event. It was a brutalist cavern of concrete and steel in the warehouse district. Father hated it initially. He wanted a ballroom with chandeliers. Trust me, I told him, adjusting his tie. It's modern, it's visionary, it screams legacy. He bought it. Narcissists always buy what you sell them. as long as the packaging mirrors their own reflection. But the venue was just the container. The real weapon was the guest list. Father handed me a list of 50 people, the inner circle, he called them. I expanded it to 200. I didn't just invite their friends, I invited their victims. I sent a gold-embossed invitation to Mr. Sterling, the business partner Father had cut out of the profits 3 years ago. I told Father that Sterling wanted to reconnect and invest. Father was practically drooling at the prospect. I invited Mrs. Carlyle, the head of the charity board. Mother thought she was coming to honor her work. She didn't know I had anonymously forwarded the emails where Mother called the charity a tax haven for ugly people. I invited the bank representatives. I invited the investors who thought their money was in stocks, not in Bella's wardrobe. Cause I curated the room like a chemical equation. One spark, and the oxygen would do the rest. The day of the gala arrived. The glass house was chaotic. Bella was screaming about her hair. Mother was hyperventilating about the seating chart. "Did you finish the tribute video?" Father barked, checking his watch. "It needs to be cinematic, Arya. I want people to cry." "Oh, they will," I said, smoothing out the tablecloth. "It's a masterpiece. I spent hours syncing the audio." "Good girl," he muttered. "At least one of you is useful." Pause. Useful. I drove them to the venue in silence. When we arrived, the gallery was transformed. Stark spotlights cut through the darkness. The walls were blank canvases ready for the projectors. The guests began to arrive. The air smelled of expensive perfume and impending disaster. I watched from the control booth, high above the crowd. I saw Father shaking hands with Mr. Sterling, unaware that Sterling was looking at him with the cold eyes of a shark smelling blood. I saw Mother embracing Mrs. Carlyle, oblivious to the fact that Mrs. Carlyle was whispering to the other board members, pointing at Mother's jewelry barked with embezzled funds. Bella was posing on the red carpet I had installed, bathing in the flash of the photographer I had hired. She looked radiant. She looked like a star. She had no idea that the press were actually forensic accountants I had tipped off anonymously. Pause. The room filled up. The hum of conversation grew louder. The champagne flowed. They were so confident, so arrogant. They stood in the center of the room, holding court, believing they were the kings and queens of this city. At 8:55 p.m., Father took the microphone. "Welcome, everyone," he boomed. "Tonight is a celebration of integrity, of family, of building something that lasts." The crowd clapped politely. "My daughter, Arya," he gestured vaguely toward the darkness of the booth, "has prepared a special presentation, a look back at 30 years of excellence." He looked up at me. He smiled. It was the smile of a man who thought he owned me. "Lights," he commanded. I looked down at the control panel. My finger hovered over the enter key. "Lights," I whispered. I killed the house lights. The room plunged into total darkness. The only thing glowing was the massive screen behind them. The trap wasn't just shut. It was welded tight. The screen flickered. A stark, blinding white square in the center of the darkness. Then, the sound. Pause. I didn't start with music. I started as a waveform. Jagged, ugly, vibrating on the screen. Mother's voice, amplified to concert volume, filled the concrete cavern. It wasn't a speech. It was a recording from 3 months ago, captured on the home security system she thought was broken. "I can't believe Mrs. Carlyle actually thinks I care about those orphans. The woman dresses like a librarian. I just need her donor list to cover the credit card debt before Robert finds out." Pause. A collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. In the spotlight, Mother froze. Her hand went to her throat, clutching the diamond necklace that Mrs. Carlyle had complimented 5 minutes ago. Mrs. Carlyle stepped back, her face hardening into stone. Before Mother could scream, the image changed. Documents, not boring spreadsheets, but high contrast, black and red scans, projected 10 feet tall. The tax evasion notice. Consulting fee invoices paid to a shell company owned by Father. The email thread with Mr. Sterling titled "How to Cut Sterling Out of the Deal." Mr. Sterling didn't shout. He just set his glass down on a passing tray. The sound of the glass hitting the metal was the loudest thing in the room. He looked at Father with the cold indifference of an executioner. Father started waving his hands, mouthing it's a fake, but the audio cut him off. Father's voice this time, drunk, arrogant. Sterling is a dinosaur. I'll bleed him dry and buy Bella a career with his retirement fund. Pause. The crowd physically recoiled. The inner circle parted, leaving my family stranded in a circle of empty floor space. They looked like specimens under a microscope. Then came the centerpiece, the Bella collection. The screen flashed to the photo of them laughing at the Sapphire Lounge. The timestamp, 2 p.m., graduation day. Next to it, a split screen, me standing alone in the gallery, clutching my diploma. The text message scrolled across the bottom like a news ticker. Stop calling. Bella needs a photographer. We'll celebrate later. Then, the emails I found in the modeling folder, the rejection letters from agencies calling Bella unmarketable, the invoices showing Father paid $10,000 for her Vogue feature, which was just a paid advertisement. The casting director's email, please stop sending her. She has no range. Pause. Bella didn't cry. She hyperventilated. Her reality, the delusion she had been fed since birth, fractured. The guests were whispering now, pointing, laughing behind their hands. The star was exposed as a prop. I leaned into the microphone in the booth. My voice was godlike, echoing from everywhere and nowhere. You wanted to show them the story of your success, I said. My voice was calm, terrifyingly steady. But a legacy built on fraud isn't a monument. It's a ruin. Father looked up at the booth, his eyes wild, searching the darkness. Aria! Turn it off, you ungrateful! I hit the final key. The screen went black. Then a single image appeared. An architectural blueprint of the glass house. And then an animation of it shattering, shard by shard, until nothing was left but the foundation. The audio shifted. No more voices. Just the sound of glass breaking, looped rhythmic, louder and louder, until it was a deafening symphony of destruction. They stood there, blinded by the projector light, stripped of their masks, drowning in the noise of their own collapse. The guests weren't looking at them with admiration anymore. They were looking at them with disgust. The exhibit was complete. The structure had failed. I didn't turn the house lights back on. I let them stand in the dark, illuminated only by the faint red glow of the emergency exit signs. Pause. The silence that followed was heavy. It was the sound of a vacuum sealing shut. Then the movement began. Mr. Sterling didn't shout. He simply pulled out his phone, dialed a number, and said 2 words. Pull everything. Mrs. Carlyle dropped her champagne glass on the floor, carelessly, deliberately, and walked out without looking back. Her herd of socialites followed, stepping over the spilled wine like it was toxic waste. And the men in the cheap suits, the ones standing by the doors who Bella thought were paparazzi, they stepped forward. They weren't photographers. They were from the district attorney's office. I had sent them the legacy folder 3 days ago. Fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion. It was all there, neatly indexed. I watched Father try to run after Mr. Sterling, but he was blocked by a badge. I watched Mother collapse onto a bench, sobbing not for forgiveness, but for her reputation. I watched Bella standing alone in her gold dress, looking at her phone, realizing that for the first time in her life, the camera wasn't her friend, it was a witness. Pause. I picked up my bag. I walked down the spiral staircase from the control booth. My heels clicked on the concrete. Click, click, click. The sound cut through the murmurs like a gavel. I walked right past them. Father saw me. He lunged, his face a mask of ruin. Aria, you did this. You killed us. I stopped. I didn't flinch. I turned to him, and for the first time, I looked him in the eye without the scaffolding. I didn't kill you, I said. My voice was soft, almost gentle. I just turned on the lights. You were dead years ago. I didn't wait for a response. There was nothing left to say to a pile of debris. I pushed open the heavy steel doors of the gallery and stepped out into the night air. It was cold. It smelled of rain and exhaust. It smelled like reality. My phone buzzed. A notification from the bank. Transaction canceled. Fraud alert confirmed. Funds returned. I smiled. I walked to my car, tossed my bag in the passenger seat, and looked back at the gallery one last time. Blue and red lights were starting to flash against the concrete walls. The sirens were growing louder, a new soundtrack for their lives. Pause. They say you can't choose your family. That's true. But you can choose to condemn the building. You can choose to evict the tenants. And you can choose to bulldoze the site so you can finally build something that stands on its own. I am not a boughter anymore. I am not a sister. I am not a victim. I am Aria Vance, Doctor of Architecture. And this was my masterpiece. Pause. If you're listening to this and you feel like you're the scaffolding holding up a rotting house, remember this. Gravity is patient, but you don't have to be. Sometimes the only way to fix a cracked foundation is to let it fall. Start your own project, build your own name, and never, ever let them steal your materials. I'm Aria, and I'm finally breaking ground.